Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Language Bridge podcast, where we explore the art of international teaching, the power of language, and the stories that connect all of us across cultures. I'm your host, Dr. Giuseppe Chiaramonte, international educator and ESL expert, and today we're taking our podcast to the heart of the Middle East, Amman, Jordan. Joining us today from Amman, Jordan is Meagan Abrahamsson. She is a U.S. State Department English Language Fellow, posted in Amman, Jordan, and she is also a veteran ESL international teacher. She's here to share her experiences navigating the international classroom from Honduras to Jordan, how she is embracing Jordanian culture and discovering the unexpected joys and challenges of teaching abroad. Meagan has some incredible insights and stories to share with us today. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, sit back, relax, and let's dive into Meagan's story. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Language Bridge podcast. I am so excited because we have with us today English language fellow Meagan Abrahamsson, that has gone through a journey that I'm so excited to share with not only you, our listeners, our friends, our family, fellow teachers, our community, but the broader international people that we connect with. And I think Meagan has some experiences that I have listened to, I admire immensely, and I'm inspired by her. And that's kind of where we are going to start off because first of all, Meagan's here with us from Jordan, right? The capital of Jordan?
Yes. Hey. I'm in Amman right now, coming to you live.
You're in Amman, Jordan.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm in Nukuz, Pakistan, Uzbekistan. You're in Amman, Jordan. Welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. I wanted to say that first for having me on. I've listened to a few of the podcasts and it just inspired me to try to get my story out as well. I love hearing everyone else's stories, and I feel like the time just goes by so quickly when I'm listening to them. Like I could just keep listening. I can start off by saying I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and then I grew up in the suburbs. Yeah, getting into teaching internationally kind of came from, I think, an inspiration of having a multicultural home. My dad's side is from Sweden. My mom's side is from Sicily. And then also the combination of loving learning languages. I studied German for 8 years in high school and university. I was the German club president, mainly because nobody else really wanted that job, but it was just about organizing weekly movies and Stammtisch, where we got together and played Apples to Apples, the German version. And then, it was a requirement to study abroad for the international studies major at Northern Michigan University. So I went to Austria, Vienna for a semester, and it totally just changed my whole world. Been always trying to chase that dragon of getting back to that point with, having an international life and just trying to live the dream.
I hear the dream because I relate to when I was in South Africa in my early 20s. There was something that happened to me there that changed my whole perspective on the white picket fence, the wanting the house. And I remember telling my family, I don't really understand what happened to me there, but it completely changed my perspective. And it's led me down to where I think we're at and can connect with here in two completely remote or different parts of the world, and probably the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah. You should always chase the thing that makes you the most excited. That's what I've heard recently, and that's kind of like what I've tried to adopt as my new mantra.
So you said you lived in Vienna, and that was for a semester, you said?
Yeah, it was just for a semester, but It was crazy. We were taught how to waltz, and we went to a ball, and we were wearing dirndls, and we, went I learned about classical music and went to orchestras and concerts and was just like appreciating art and walking around the city and learning about it. So I was just like, I need to continue to do this in my life. And so that's when I decided I wanted to be in international studies world forever. So then after that, I went back to the US and finished my degree. And then reached out to a friend, and he was teaching in Honduras. And he said, we need a replacement. Do you want to do it? And I said, yeah. And then I was on a flight like a couple days later, teaching in a rural area in Honduras for a year.
It's interesting when you said you spent an elongated amount of time or extended period of time in Vienna, because I think it's different than when you just vacation somewhere and you dabble versus when you live there and embed yourself in the culture, the community. You begin to understand what this unique culture has to offer and teach you. And that was transformative for me as well in South Africa and then a couple other places where I spent a longer period of time. Is that because I heard you said, oh, wait, this is where I want to be now doing this for the rest of my life because I had this opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. It was like a cosmic shift. The refrigerator was small. There were like a few items in it. And I was just like, why are things like this? And it was because my host mom would go to the supermarket that was just underneath our apartment to buy fresh food items every day. And it was just different than the Costco going and getting everything on sale and in bulk. And that's what I prefer. And I know that everyone is different, but I know what I like. So that's good.
You're speaking my language. I completely get what you're saying. I completely understand it. And I think right before we were starting the podcast, we talked about what's the next step in what you're doing. And you said, hey, there's this opportunity here. And that's what the beauty of having like-minded people in your life and finding other people that understand you, because international teaching is tricky. You're not always in the same place for a long period of time. Has that been your experience as well?
Well, yeah, 100%. I feel that a lot of the positions that I have gotten have been through my network, and it's kind of daunting to think about just sending a cold application out without knowing anyone on the other side, because those rarely go anywhere. And so I've put a lot of time and energy into networking and going to meetings and staying connected with people who I vibe with. And that's been very useful for me. And I would like to be in a position one day where I could be a mentor for other people.
And that's how I feel. I feel that the longer I do this, the more I want to empower people. Send me an email, reach out, let me know what you need, because I understand how hard it is or how challenging it could be when you first start out. Because that cold resume that goes out, it just doesn't work. It may work one in 100 times, but you need to network and you need to have people like yourself, us as a community, wrap our arms around you and say, hey, let's get you where you want to be, where you're most.
And stay active.
Yes. Yep. So how did you apply for the English Language Fellow program that we're a part of right now? What led you here?
Yeah, that's another good question. So the way that I found out about the English Language Fellows was I was living in Australia for 5 years, and I became the director of an English language college there. Unfortunately, the school closed and the time was up on my visa. So I came back to the US and boom, COVID hit. So I was online, 12 hours a day, searching for jobs. And what I did was I had a look at everyone from my master's program's background to see who was still in the international studies world, just because, as you mentioned, it's so great experiences. And then it's like, okay, go back to the US or back to normal life. And I was looking through people's profiles, and one of them was in HR, and then another was in real estate. And then luckily I found one girl, and she had this experience in Ghana. So I said, what is this? And I looked on the website and I thought, okay, this was a great opportunity. So I applied, and I knew that because of COVID that things were going to be online. But luckily, the English language programs, they pivoted online so smoothly, or what it looked like from my perspective. And I became a virtual educator for the first year and a half. So I worked on about 3 or 4 projects virtually before I came to Jordan in person.
Okay. And you brought up 2 really good points. It has not come up in my past conversations that I am noticing more and more is the extent to where colleges or university or schools do close down. And it's nothing to do, it's just with you or whatever is happening. It's sometimes just the community. There's a shift, and you have to be ready and willing and flexible and fluid, because it's going to happen. I've seen it in my area in Uzbekistan. Schools just closed down in Africa, and you have to be ready to say, okay, it's going to take me 12 hours a day, like Meagan just said. I'm going to have to hit my networking. I'm going to have to go to LinkedIn or wherever it may be, but almost like an expectation that is just part of being an international educator.
Yeah, unfortunately, the school in Australia was bought by a different owner, and they didn't make there were some decisions that were made that didn't help the college survive, unfortunately.
Those circumstances seem to be not normative, but it happens. And you brought up such a part of what we do and how we have to make adjustments. So I think that's the real talk right there. Now, have you ever been to the Middle East before?
This is my first time in the Middle East. Yeah. I was living in Italy before this, since I'm a dual citizen. And I mean, as a virtual educator, you can live anywhere. That's a great thing about English language programs, is there are a lot of, I guess, jobs that they advertise that you can work remotely, but it has to be in a certain state in the US or in the US in general. But English language programs allows you to be anywhere in the world. And then they gave a project match based on the time zone that was right for both of us. And the first match that I got was actually in Oran, Algeria. But I wasn't done living or having that experience at that moment. So I declined that one. But then the next semester or the next year, I was offered the placement in Jordan. And it was kind of serendipitous, because when I first got the placement, I was like, there's no way I'm going to go there. And then actually, I was like, you know what? I remember my best friend in Australia. She's someone who I look up to, like, such an amazing woman. And we used to be teachers together, and now she changed her career to be a midwife. She's just like a most fabulous person. And I remember her telling me that she had experience volunteering with Save the Children in Jordan for a few summers. And she just absolutely loved it. So I contacted her. I said, hey, I got this project proposal. What do you think? She said, oh my God, you have to do it. Jordan is amazing. And so even with my skepticism, I was like, okay, well, I'll just do the interview. And then luckily, the project that was proposed was something to work and help bring up, like, an American language center in East Amman, which is an area where there are a lot of refugees and immigrants. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. Let's go.
I'm a little jealous right now, because that sounds amazing. I love where I'm at. But that working with refugees and teaching them English and supporting them, it sounds like a dream.
Well, something that I didn't know about Jordan before I came here is that it's kind of like the eye of the storm, where it's such a peaceful place. And I think that because, before I came to Jordan, I didn't realize, I kind of just grouped all Middle Eastern countries together, which is not a good thing to do, obviously. But then once you get here, once you do a little bit more investigation, you find out that Jordan has been peaceful for many, many years. And a lot of people come here, and Jordan accepts many refugees and immigrants. That I think there were a lot from Iraq first, and then Syrian. Well, I guess Palestinians were first. And yeah, so actually, I think it's around like 70% of people who live in Jordan have some Palestinian ancestry.
That's fascinating because you said eye of the storm. There is a lot of turmoil that you hear about the Middle East. I lump them together too sometimes. Completely wrong of me. I get it, but that's my American point of view. And I apologize to the Jordanians and everyone in the countries. I do apologize right away. However, you are in that eye of the storm, and you told me a story about how you looked up one day and there were rockets. And now the only reason I bring this story up is because I have a great support system at home. They understand my truth, my passion for teaching, my love for international teaching. But there is a group that says, we're concerned about you. That you are in places that something bad may happen. You may get kidnapped. They'll bring that up. Or something, are you safe? And I'm like, yes, I'm safe. I'm okay. I'll figure it out. These are challenges. This is what I'm built to do. But then you have this story. Surprised me, to be honest. I was surprised that you said you saw rockets heading from one country over your country to maybe another country. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have a problem answering. I think to start off, I should say that we are both incredibly lucky that we have people who are so concerned about us back at home. As much as frustrating as it can be to try to explain to someone that you are safe when they hear all of these things, or they're seeing things in the news, and trying to calm them down is not an easy task. But I'm forever grateful that I have family members who care about me and who have concern for my safety. But having said that, there was some talk about sending over some missiles, I think, from Iran to Israel. And this was back in April, if I'm remembering correctly. I just remember I was talking to my friend. She works for USAID, so she has a little bit more intel than I have. But yeah, she just called me and said, "Hey, are you at home right now?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, good. Stay there. Don't go outside. Crack your windows a little bit and put your curtains over, just in case that if there is some vibration from the missiles, that the windows wouldn't shatter on you." And so, yeah, things you don't know that could happen. And I didn't get trained in that. And I guess that we didn't get that kind of training because it wasn't a for sure thing that it was going to happen, or maybe they didn't want us to worry. But they always tell us, at the embassy, have a go bag ready, which means with your passport. And that was kind of a hairy time. And I will say as well, coming here I came September 2023, and it was just in October when the attacks in Israel happened. So what I was told from the fellows who had returned last year, because this is my second year here and they were here the year before, they said the mood was completely different. Something that is good about the Jordanian people here is that I never feel scared or worried or like people are going to harass me because I'm American, because something you always hear is people are not their government. And sitting in taxis and talking to Uber drivers, they'll always say, "Oh, where are you from?" I say, "I'm American." They're always like, "Wow, that's great." And they ask me, who did you vote for? But then there's always this distinction where they know that, people are not their government, and not necessarily everyone agrees with the choices that their government makes. So I'm really grateful that the Jordanian people here have treated me that way. And so, but having said that, having this connection to the embassy and being called the American Language Center, we were told not to promote our center for a long time when I first started. So I wasn't teaching classes for like the first half of the year when I came to the fellowship. So that was a really strange experience. But I mean, in terms of my safety, sorry, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent right
No, not at
now.
all.
I would say that, so the Australian friend who I spoke with before the interview, it was just so lucky that her sister was marrying a Lebanese guy at the same time I was moving here. And so she went to her wedding in Lebanon and then came to Jordan to meet me here right when I touched down. So like within the first day, oh, actually, we organized it so that she would fly in the same day that I did. So I remember waiting for her at the airport with my 5 suitcases and my dog in his cage. And she came and we found taxis and she told me, okay, this is a place where we need to stay. She still had some Arabic. These are the places we need to eat. And even having her there as this huge support for me, I was still scared to go out at night. Like, honestly, there's a downtown area that I'm not too far from. And when we went down there, I just felt so overwhelmed, like with the men wearing the kufiyas, which are like the red and white checkered headdresses, and they're wearing their, what are they called? I think dishdasher, what they're like, their long robes, or they're called thobes in the Gulf countries. And the women wearing like the full niqab, which just has like the slit for the eyes, like full black. And then, having all of those years of being in the United States and just seeing negative or when you see those images, they have these negative connotations attached to them. And I was just like, I need to go back home right now. And she was like, okay, I understand. So like, we didn't have dinner that night. We went back home, we ordered in, and it was a bit overwhelming for me at first. I mean, walking around with a dog, it's a Muslim country majority, and I live in a pretty nice area where there are lots of foreigners and lots of Christians as well. But in Islam, there's a belief that if a dog licks you, or like, then you have to wash yourself before you can pray. And so a lot of people are scared of dogs. I think it's just like people are more cat people here, and dogs are more used for protection. So when I walk around, I get a lot of like, people will go like, ow, 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 like barking at me when I'm walking him. And so I was just like, why do you have to do that? But yeah, it took a little bit longer for me to feel comfortable in my area than anything. But then I think about after 2 weeks, I could relax. And I knew that when I got overwhelmed, to come back to like my sanctuary in my house.
I love what you just said about 2 weeks. It takes 2 weeks, maybe even a month, for if you're an international teacher and I use the word acclimate, but to feel safe in the place that you're living. And then the spheres, I call them spheres, where you start walking further and further and you're like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay here. I'm okay here. And you start talking to the people and you start seeing the different ways they interact and understand how to engage with the community, because we do it naturally in the US. Somebody says, well, this civil unrest happened 2 years ago. I go, well, there's civil unrest in the US. I know not to go near it. When I was in Bangkok, there was 8 bombings in and around Bangkok. I go, well, I'm nowhere near them. And they're like, well, are you all right? I go, yeah, I just don't go to that area. Just the same thing. I use the same kind of hairs on the back of my neck mentality, but I just apply it to the region I'm in and I learn. Just what you're saying, you've done so much to learn about the area, the region, and the people. And the people, man, the people are not the government. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to be honest. Never heard that before. And see, this is where, again, you learn so much from each other, because that's exactly the fundamental universal truth about being an international educator is people are not their government. That really moved me.
How simple is that too?
It's that keep it simple, stupid, that KISS mentality. That's exactly the mentality I have. I've never really articulated in that way. So thank you for sharing that. That was powerful.
Yeah, well, thank the Jordanian people for sharing it to me. I'm just a vehicle for it.
Yeah. So you said something about Jordanian culture that surprised you. That the dog part of it, that was interesting. But again, over here in Nukus, dogs are for protection. and cats are the animal to keep at home. So if I walk in the store, there's no dog food. The dogs eat whatever food you give them, but there's cat food in the store. No dog food. They eat whatever you're eating because they're there for protection and some companionship, but definitely there's a lot of barking, and I don't get near homes here. Cats now, totally opposite. Is there anything besides that Jordanian culture that surprised you or impressed you?
Something about Jordanian culture. Well, actually, I was just out with some friends last night, and we were walking around. People in the Middle East, they have this reputation for being hospitable, warm people, very inviting. And you feel that way, but it's kind of hard to put it into words. But there was a good example just yesterday. And it's Ramadan right now. But I don't think that it was because of Ramadan, because it happens all the time. But anytime where like there's this guy who has a supermarket at the end of my street. And since I walk my dog a lot, we always say hello to each other as passing by, like, oh, what a beautiful day. Hi, how are you? If it's raining, oh, yeah, it's still nice out. We need the rain, like short little conversations like that. And as I was walking by, it was like around dinner time, and he was eating food or like just starting to eat something. And he said like, Tafaddali, that means like, come on, take some. So it's just like not even having that strong of a connection with this person, but the idea of when there is food, like you share it, even if it's somebody you don't know, like, come on and have some. I find that to be maybe the thing that sets Jordanian or Arab people apart from maybe others in the United States or other countries that I've lived in, where, I've got some friends who, when we go out to eat, like, they don't want to share their plate of food. And it's like, maybe we won't stay friends for a long time, but it's just like this concept of, I guess, coveting what you think is yours. It's just like, no, there is no yours. It's like everything is shared. And like, even I have friends when it comes to money, like within the family, the money that we make is for the family. It's not for me. So if my brother needs it right now, I'm going to give it to him because one day I'm going to need it and I might not have enough. And maybe it could cause some complications, but the family unit here is so strong. And one other little anecdote I would like to share is one of the my university counterpart, because I'm teaching at the University of Jordan right now. She was getting married and she was engaged. So we were all sitting in her office and we were talking about it, just like giggling, like, wow, this is such an exciting time. And one of the coworkers said, when are we going to make balls of food with our hands? And I was like, what does that mean? And literally, so the national dish in Jordan is called mansaf, and you're supposed to eat it with your hands. And it's like a celebration kind of dish as well. So they were basically saying, like, when are we going to celebrate your engagement? Like, when are we going to eat mansaf? When are we going to eat with our hands together?
This is where I, again, cross-culturally connect to 95% what you're saying, because here in Nukus, very remote part of the world where I'm at, they have bishmanark, and and bishmanark means 5 fingers. So they always, whenever we're celebrating, they'll bring bishmanark out of the restaurants. They'll put it in the middle, and they're like, and I start getting my fork and my spoon to get the pancakes and the meat. They're like, Mr. Giuseppe, please use your hands. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And so I start getting, and we're all picking our parts of the plate. You remind me of something. Do you watch Friends? Have you ever seen that show? I love
Friends.
Okay, remember when Joey was sitting at the table and he wouldn't let his date have the food?
Yes, I remember that.
That is so much a part of our culture. But then I was on a train from Buhata back to Nukus. It was a 9-hour train ride, and I didn't have any food. I forgot again to bring food. There's no food on it's a Russian sleeper train. So sitting on the train, and I'm with a Russian who's going to Volgograd, a 3-day trip. So we're in the same sleeper car, and he looks no English. And I don't have my Google Translate because I didn't have any internet connection. So we're doing gestures for about 3 hours. And he notices me not eating. I have no food. And he starts ripping off bread. And then he brings out the cured meat. And he keeps trying to hand it to me. And I'm trying to be the American kind of like, oh, no, I'll be okay. Then I got really hungry. And finally I accepted it. And we ate for the next 4 hours. Me and him just crushed food and laughing and doing charades. And it became this, again, communal. Then he brought other people in. They were sharing their food. I'm like, and then the money. I didn't really have much money, and he bought me more food, like baked, whatever it was. It was crazy. So again, amazing.
It's like humanity and community over, and what a great opportunity that is, like, to be able to feed someone who's hungry. And like, I think that there is something about sharing a meal with friends or family, like when you're eating and you're talking, and there's just like your connection becomes stronger. And maybe that's like the Italian in me, is like that family is where it's in the kitchen, like everything happens in the kitchen or at the dining room table, and you're talking about what you're going to eat for lunch when you're eating breakfast, and then you go to the market and you talk about what you're going to have for dinner. And it's just like the whole conversation is always centered around food, because like that is what brings people together, and it's such a lovely thing. I think that the reason why people like to do international potlucks and try each other's food, and I think that that's something. I'm not fasting this year for Ramadan, but I was last year. And just for a week, though, so don't get too impressed.
Because it's a month here, just like, as you know.
Yeah, it was tough doing it for the first time, but it was like such a great reflection time to think about, like, what is my actual relationship with food, and am I just eating when I'm bored? And then you're just like looking forward to when the sun goes down so that you can have that first meal. But a kind of sad reason why I'm not doing it this year is because what I've learned is that that's such a special time for the family to connect, because everyone fasts the whole day, and then everyone comes home at dinner time because they're hungry and the food is ready and they all share that meal. But being here as a fellow, and I don't have that feast to look forward to, this is like no reward for fasting all day. But I mean, I do have friends here, and I have been invited to iftars, which is like the dinner to break the fast. And so I will fast the days that I have an iftar planned. And we had one with the Reload team earlier in the week. And it's just like that brings the community together even more.
Oh, it does. And that's what I saw the first night in Nukus. I'm not familiar with Ramadan at all. It's been a jump in deep with the fasting and being aware of what everyone is doing and what the purpose is and the whole culture behind it. The first night I go out to eat in Nukus on Ramadan, and the first time I couldn't get a table. I'm like, what is happening? And everybody had broken fast, but it was all families. Like you said, kids everywhere, families, grandmothers, everyone was I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Nukus just came alive. In the restaurants, I couldn't get in, and that's not normal. So when you said family, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I love it. I'm just.
Did you have to crash an iftar? You had to find a seat.
I haven't heard that word, and that's where it's just these slight variations in terminology. I am vibing right now because what they're doing is how you're putting a term to it, but they call it something else. Again, the way they connect with the Islamic faith is a little different in Nukus, and the Uzbeks connect with it a little differently. And then down south, so everybody has their slight variations, but again, Ramadan is the fasting period, and then how you break it, it's just game on after that. So it's very interesting on that front. What is your favorite Jordanian dish? Because it sounds like food's a big part of your experience, like mine.
Yeah, I have a nice story about my first Jordanian meal. I was talking to a friend and I said, what's your favorite food? And they said, mlohia. And have you heard of it before?
No, never.
Okay, it's really strange because so many people here have told me that that's their favorite dish. And I don't think that it would go over very well in the United States or in, I don't know, the global north. So I said, okay, can we go to a restaurant? Like, what's a good restaurant we can go to get mojia? And he said, my house. My mom makes the best one. So I was like, at first I was like, this is probably not a good idea. I shouldn't go with this guy that I just met. And then I was like, but I'm a fellow and I need to like say yes to new experiences. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. So I went and we had just like the most fabulous time. And it turns out mojia is this plant. It's very green. And it's like a leaf. It's like a leafy spinach. Looks like spinach, but when you mash it up, it has like an okra-like slime. In the US, in English, it's called jumalo. So I don't know if you've had that before, but
Never.
It's just like this green slimy goop. Like it looks like, from Nickelodeon, like Slime Time.
Okay.
But yeah, a little bit darker, and it's garlicky, and you have it with rice and chicken and potatoes, or you can have it with lamb. Like I just had it the other day with lamb. It is very delicious. It's like smooth, but I don't know if you could take that dish outside of the Middle East and say like, hey, try this slime. And but it's super healthy for you. And a lot of people have it as their first meal for their first iftar during Ramadan because it's just like so healthy, and it's a good way to like ease your stomach into eating again after fasting all day.
That's the key. I went to a fish house the other night. Fish is real big in Nukus. They eat a white type of carp out of the river, and very popular dish here. There's 3 types of carp that they eat, but they also make a fish porridge, and I don't know what other word it is. I don't even know what the local language is, but I call it fish porridge. I wish it was chowder because I wish it's a thick jelly-like fish substance that they mash, and so my friends, they order it. And I like it. It's tasty. It's just the texture. It wouldn't fly in America. And I'm like, okay, I can do this again because the taste is good. It's just the feeling in my mouth. The one guy I never met before, he was watching me intensely as I was eating it. And he's like, and he says in Katakapak, do you like it? I go, I do like the taste, but my American palate is struggling. He's like, because it's like a fish shake. He said that in English. I'm like, it is. It's like a fish shake. Like you took fish and put it in a blender and you did it up and put some kind of flour. Anyway, so I relate a little bit to that. This probably wouldn't translate too well to our American palate.
Yeah, but I just try to think about the health benefits, and that's something that I've been so impressed with Jordanian food. I mean, there is a difference between Jordanian food and Palestinian food, and because there's such a huge influence from Palestine, and so these countries like Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, they're called the Levant, and they have like this is where hummus comes from. This is where like a baba ganoush and it's another one like mutabal comes from. Like I could talk about this food forever. Because it's just like, it's so healthy and it's so like, honestly, there is a hummus place here by my house. And when I eat it, like the fresh one, it just, something turns on in my brain and tells me to be happy. And I was so curious about that. Like, what is in this that is making me so happy right now? And I Googled it and I saw that there are like some nutrients in hummus that help release endorphins or help with your serotonin levels. And I was just like, wow, like maybe that's another reason why people are so happy here, because they eat this every day.
Well, if they're anywhere near as happy as you are, your energy and your positivity always, like right now, I just feel good.
It's a lot easier than what you would think. I think, okay, so how it was explained to me in the initial interview is like there is a range of, areas that are more strict than others when it comes to Muslim countries. So as an outsider, I mean, growing up in Detroit, we have the largest Arab community outside of the Middle East, but I had never been close with anyone who was Muslim before. And so coming here is my first experience with that. And it like shattered a lot of the beliefs that I had before. I had to unlearn a lot of things and then try to like start from the beginning But something that does bother me, I hope my views and how I was conditioned and how I was raised about thinking of myself as a woman. It's different here. There are obviously, specific gender roles, and there are always like different shades and variations of it. But just for example, the other day I was riding in a taxi, and there was a woman driving next to us, and the sticker on the back of her car said, "Please be patient with me, I'm a girl." And I was just like so floored at seeing that. And I was just like, God, that makes my stomach turn, because it just, people have this idea of about like what a woman, but then I don't know, I go over and over in my head probably more times than it is healthy to like, is this the way that it should be, like, or is it the way that it should be in the US? And I try to go through both of those experiences and trying to look at it. And something interesting is, two things. Like in my class last semester, there was okay, so something I didn't know before I came here is that when a girl decides to wear a hijab, maybe she's like 13 or 14, it's like showing her commitment to God. And if you take it off, it's better if you're not sure about putting it on, because once you take it on, it's not good to take it off.
Okay.
And you have to be like really sure, you have to be really committed that that's what you want to do. Because if you take it off, that's, I guess, bad points with God, the way that I understand it. And so there was a girl in my class who was wearing hijab the whole semester. And like in the last week, she took it off. And I was just pretty shocked about that. But then in my Arabic class, there were some Japanese girls who came and they decided to put it on. And I didn't realize that there was a big like Muslim community in Japan. Yeah, there was another instance. My Arabic teacher, I was taking some classes last semester as well, and she was very strong in her opinions about, being anti-feminist and saying, I used to be feminist, and then I realized like it's completely destroying women, and, we should be in the house and we should have our duties. And she was telling me that she got upset with her mother-in-law because her mother-in-law was watching her son, and her mother-in-law asked her son to help her with the cooking. And she said that she didn't like that because those are women's duties and it goes against his nature. So he shouldn't be cooking. He shouldn't be cleaning. He should be going on the right path of what being a man is. And it just sounds so like ancient to me. But then the curious part of my mind is like, is that how it should be? Or like, but then I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, but I don't want to like say that it's wrong for someone else.
In my classroom, I relate to 1000% everything you're saying, because from a male point of view, the majority of my students are women. They're going to be teachers, or they're going to move or transition into what you're saying, the gender assigned roles. And so I bring up a lot of what American males is, I cook, you clean, or you clean, I cook. And that's a mentality that's shifting in America. It's more equality. And I think you are giving all of us space to reconsider, or at least question our culture, their culture. And then this what makes international teaching probably the best job in the world, because we get to wrestle with that. And it's okay to wrestle with it. But we also have learned how to accept and then shift and move and work within and care for and empower and say, yeah, what you're saying is okay. I'm going to be okay with it, but it really is challenging me, because I am challenged by it. I care about my female students a lot, and sometimes my American Papa Bear comes out. I'm like, whoa, that's a little much. And then I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is what I want for my life. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's okay.
I remember a former fellow when it was my first year in my first pre-departure orientation. I remember a returning fellow in the Philippines. She said, there are some things that you can learn about the culture and accept about the culture, but there are other things you can learn about the culture and not accept. So if you choose not to accept those things, like you just have to be polite about it, or don't get into it with someone, because, we are connected to be like representatives of the US. And so we have to be very careful about what we say. And I always like to take on the motto, like, I don't have an opinion about anything. And so, like, I don't honestly, like, I'm not a stupid person, but I like to think that I don't know anything and I don't have an opinion, because in that way I can learn. And that doesn't mean that I don't think certain ways, but I don't think that there's a one size fits all for every situation. And it's just, I spend so much time thinking about it and like turning things over in my head and reading books and doing research and talking to people. And it was interesting. I was talking to a student who doesn't cover her hair. And I was saying, I'm not Muslim, and I think about all of the different reasons. Is it really her choice? Or is it a cultural thing? Or is she wanting to express her relationship and connection to God? Or does she get, pressure for her family, like trying to go through the different reasons? And I was telling her these things, and she was like, for the amount of time that you think about it, imagine for us, it's 1 million times more. And so it's just so strange that like I'm exhausting myself thinking about it when I don't really have to, but I'm not in their situation. And honestly, I'm glad that I'm not. And it's interesting here because you have to be more modest when you go out to be respectful of the culture. Like, that's just it. I was wearing a dress to meet with the university last summer when I decided to renew. And it was collared. I wasn't showing any chest. It was long sleeve, and like a little bit of my ankle was showing. And I was told after that some of the people in the meeting thought that my clothing was inappropriate and I need to cover my ankles. So like, to be professional. So that kind of shock is totally different, and something that I experienced. Like, my sister is in California. I went back to California after that experience, and I see girls, running down the beach in their sports bras and hot shorts. And I'm just like, okay, now I have to undress to fit in with this community, So I feel comfortable in anything, but I don't like the idea of someone telling you can or can't do something because of a reason that you don't agree with. But you have to do that when you're in a different culture. That's it.
We have a massive responsibility when you are referring to the dress. And I want to highlight that part of it because there are some international educators who do miss that point. You must immediately understand what the clothing expectations are in your community. And you touched on this expectation of formality and professionalism. What does professionalism mean to your community? Because in my community, I must show up to work with a sport jacket, a clean tucked in shirt, nice shoes. Now, I can have an American style. That's okay. But I will not be taken seriously. My students will look at me a little like, okay, I'm American. But if I showed up like a teacher can in America, with maybe an untucked shirt, maybe a t-shirt, and maybe shorts sometimes if it's hot, depending on your school system, that would you would lose so much face in the communities I've taught in. Even in Thailand, where it was 100-degree humidity, I needed to show up professionally. And whether I sweat it or not, you better show up and be appropriate, which is what you're saying. And that goes for women too. Why do you think the U.S. government sends us overseas to teach? It's a big question, but I think we, again, have this sense of responsibility. We're representing the United States in the way we see fit. I mean, we're dropped almost like parachuted. Sometimes I feel like I got parachuted into NUCUs, and I look around, there's no other Americans, or no other people that look like me at all, ever. Yeah. I'm the person that is walking around the street, and it's probably the same for you. You said there's some tourists in your area, but other areas, no. Yeah. What do you think?
Something that I think is influence. Because, okay, so before October 7th happened, there was a steady flow of tourism into Jordan. They have Petra, they have the Red Sea, they have Wadi Rum. It's a magnificent country. There's so much to offer. But ever since then, you can see that the tourism industry has really gone down. And I think that a lot of the tourists that come here, like maybe what you were saying is when you don't have the time to spend, there aren't a lot of foreigners that are here for a long time outside of Amman. There are a lot of people working in NGOs here, World Bank, the IMF, UNICEF, the UN. Like this is a hot spot. It's actually ranked number 2 after Geneva in areas where like people who work in the field of the United Nations or in international development choose to live just because it is so nice and it is so comfortable. But having said that, I don't think that there's not a lot of exposure to American culture. And so I feel like in other places that I've lived, in Australia or even in China, people at least will know maybe what the popular songs are at the time, or they'll watch the blockbuster Hollywood movies. And here, maybe not so much. And I was even talking to the Relo team, from the local staff. And we were talking about this just a couple of days ago. And he was saying that it used to be cool to go and get a hamburger when you go out to eat. But now the cool thing is like to have Asian food. It's just like American culture is not as strong of a force as it used to be, at least here in the Middle East. So I think that this applies for maybe anything. Is the less you know about it, the more fear you have about it. And so I really wanted to come to the Middle East to challenge myself, to say, I'm not scared of anything. Like this is something that I was scared of before, but when you come here, you realize there's really nothing that you need to be scared of. Mm-hmm. And so I have realized that, especially from people who come from countries that it's not as easy to travel internationally, they don't have the same opportunities to go outside of Jordan. Now you can go to Turkey without a visa. So there are a lot of, Jordanians in Turkey, for example, but to get a visa to even travel anywhere is very difficult. And if you're within a certain demographic and you don't have a lot of connection back to Jordan, you won't be able to go. And I remember even other fellows from like Tunisia or Algeria saying that their embassies don't even have consulates. Like they don't even give tourist visas to go to the United States. So they want to keep the United States safe by, I think, allowing American culture and influence via people-to-people diplomacy, but without giving the same opportunity to be like open to come to visit and see for themselves because of the fear of overstaying.
That was so perfectly said, because I'm struggling with what would I say to a skeptical U.S. taxpayer about a program like this? And the longer I'm here, the better answer I have, because I see Russia, China, the U.S., and now Turkey. There's these influences that are not subtle. We have a subtle influence now in the region I'm in. We're not a strong influence like Russia and China. So the access to news, to music, just what you said, culture has been limited even recently to the people in my region, because Russia and China are not moving in, but that's what they see. That's what they hear. So I say, hey, did you go on YouTube and watch it English? They're like, no, we watch Russian or Kazakh or Chinese. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so there's these shifts happening, whatever is happening, diplomacy on a larger scale. Again, when I'm sitting here, I'm their only connection, because the possibility of them leaving now Nukus and traveling abroad are vastly limited compared to what I am able to do. And that's what I'm realizing now. The only thing they can do right now is probably within the next 5 to 10 years, and maybe even longer, depending on the global things that are happening around the world, is the people in my community can go work in Russia and then send money back. So very similar to like how the Central American people will try to come to America and send money back. That's how it is for them. So their connection is to Russia, Volgograd, the southern part of Russia. They'll go and transmigrate there and live there. The men will, and then they'll send money back. which I'm learning all about this interaction and how it's happening. So anywhere else, this isn't, occurring. And then also the Middle East too, they will go there. So a lot of the plane flights I have, when coming back, we'll have a lot of the Uzbek diaspora or even Karakalpak diaspora coming back to visit because they've been working internationally. Yeah, in large numbers. It's a real fascinating movement and how it happens in this region. I'm familiar with it back home, but connecting as an American here, I'm literally telling them any experience that I have. They're like, hey, did you hear this American song? I'm like, yeah, I know that song or that song. And then we talk about it, but that's it. The one thing that I always come back to is this understanding that really we're teachers, but we are talking about everything but teaching.
Everyone is in my experience, like everyone is a teacher. You can learn something from everyone, and they're not even in the field of academia. Like something that really shocked me when I first got here was we had our post-arrival orientation. And I remember somebody from the embassy, I don't remember who it was exactly, but they said that the reason why international businesses don't choose Jordan to work with is because of a lack of critical thinking skills. And I remember hearing that and thinking like, okay, well, maybe I should like incorporate some critical thinking strategies in my curriculum. And then as I met the students and I met the people and I learned about it, and that was probably like the most racist, colonialistic thing that someone could have said, like to just group a bunch of people to say that their like cognitive ability isn't matched with ours. And it just upset me so much because, okay, well, maybe they don't have the same type of institutionalized education that you have, or they value different things instead of being productive all of the time. Case in point with having a smaller schedule or a shorter schedule during Ramadan, because their focus is not being productive and being successful in terms of finances. And maybe there are people who do, but then it's just on a different kind of ranking scale. And it's kind of like refreshing to live somewhere where people aren't pushing themselves. Like I remember when I was living in Italy, I was going back to the US and I was sitting in the group of people at the gate, everyone going back to the US, they just had their vacations. They were all sunburnt and they had their hats on, like their fedoras. Yeah. And I remember them just looking so tired. And I was like, this is the way that Americans look after their vacation in Italy? Like, what did they look like before they came here?
This idea of happiness is what has been transformative as an international educator. Because when you say I'm going to be honest, my NUCU students, I love you. You know I do. I care about you. I want the best for you. But sometimes it's hard for me to understand how they can be so happy. Because I struggle sometimes. I'm happy. I'm passionate about teaching. I can't tell you how happy I am to teach. But the happiness they can bring out of life that teaches me to see life in such a different way. They're like, did you get enough rest? I'm like, oh, I'm like, they just understand life in this different capacity that I find myself resting more.
What was something that was a really awesome kind of experience? Yeah. So I wrote my final exam last semester for my reading and comprehension class. And the last question was supposed to be about critical thinking, which is where all of this like came across. So, read this article. So I decided, I used ChatGPT. I said, write a short paragraph about the happiest country in the world, Denmark. So it's Denmark. And the first question was, is this article more opinion-based or fact-based? And, I've gone through the classes before and I told them, like, what are opinion statements? What are fact-based statements? And then I said, are there more fact-based statements or are there more opinion-based statements? And then I said, do you agree with the article that those are good reasons or that factor into an individual's happiness? And how would you rank Jordan on the scale? So I got such amazing answers, but I would say it wasn't so much of an even split. I would say maybe 70-30. So 70% said that they agree with the factors that the article said about, the health care, the free education, being in a peaceful area, having job opportunities. Like those are all factors that go into an individual's happiness. But then they also said that the article didn't mention the connection to community, the family values, the having a relationship with God or some kind of spiritual connection. And it just makes me wonder that why don't we put in those factors when we talk about what's the happiness scale? And maybe we would get some different outcomes on that. I mean, there were some students that said, I want to get out of Jordan. And, but the majority of them said that they would rank Jordan as 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 for being the happiest, and really happy to hear that. And now, this is a proof that they are able to think critically. So take that.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes that is my mentality that I bring into a culture is, I'm going to show you a way to a better life. Like I have some impact on that. And then the students are like, I'm happy in my city. I want to stay here with my family. And I love my family. Why would you ever think I would want to do something other than my community? I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta, again, somehow this is beholden on me to come in and provide a better life. That is not it. That has changed me immensely and changed my relationships with my friends and family back home as well. Is how do I work with you, not for you? How do I empower you? How do I best support you? How do I create a stronger bonds within my community and my family after what I've learned here? And what that has created is this family structure that can meet challenges head on and not only find happiness, but find a way to thrive and live a good life. I meant a great life. It just
eat
is.
With your hands. The secret behind is just eating with your hands.
There it is. All right. So I have a game. You want to play a game with me? Yeah, I know. I'm totally surprising you. It's called Desert Hot Seat.
Hot Seat.
Just for Meagan.
Wow. Now you're talking about how to make people feel special. You're
I spent some time on this. It's called Desert Hot Seat. And I was thinking about some questions. You got to answer, not every question. If there's a little bit, if you're like pass, we'll pass. But you have to answer as quickly and vividly as possible. And if you hesitate too much, I may say desert heat and we'll move on.
Okay.
No, it's only 5 minutes. It's only 5 minutes. And I just want to get to know you a little bit better because we have a couple hours together and your story is, as everyone's seeing, amazing and vibrant and exciting and challenging and all these things that make international education, but living a life that you are living the life that you want. You are out there doing it. So are you ready?
I think so.
All right. Flashback files, past experiences. Here we go. What's a lesson your students have taught you?
So many.
One.
No, I mean like my students in Jordan or my students like in general?
We're going to go Jordan. What's a lesson your students in Jordan students have taught you?
That they're just like such lovely people. Okay, so for example, back in February, there was this thing called the chocolate challenge that was trending on TikTok or on Instagram. And at the end of my class, I have the video posted on my Instagram, but they recorded me. There was a student that came and brought me like a cookie. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like, what is this for? And before he said anything, all of the class stood up and they all came to me and they all gave me sweets and chocolate. And it was just like such a crazy feeling, like to be appreciated like that. Like they really make you feel appreciated. And then that went on to happen in the other two of my classes as well. So I wasn't as surprised, but it was just like, as a teacher, internationally, I would say, you do feel more appreciated maybe than teachers in the United States. I don't have a lot of experience teaching in the United States, to be honest, but the gratitude that people express that, or when you're working with people from other countries, I have never been that shocked that, like, I can't remember the last time I was surprised or shocked, like, in a good way like that before.
I think it's okay to say that. My students, I taught in America, and I had phenomenal relationships with my students. They showed gratitude and love and appreciation, but the magnitude that it happens in other countries, and I've taught in Thailand, Vietnam, now Uzbekistan, it's at another level. There's nothing bad or negative about America in that respect. It's just what you're saying is true.
More
It really
expressive.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. They are. All right. What's a time you had to improvise in the classroom?
Every time I go in. No, hopefully no one's listening to this. No, I'm just kidding. Many times you have to improvise. So the way that I try to think about my classes is how can I gamify everything that I'm doing? So honestly, like I was watching an Instagram reel the other day and there was a teacher talking and saying like, think about it as like you're on a game show. Like every class you have is like a game show, and every semester you have new contestants. And like in my classroom, the class sizes are pretty big. I have at least 50 students in each class, and my classrooms at the university are pretty well outfitted with technology. So I have microphones. So like, I don't know if it's like the Leo in me that loves the attention as well, but I will just like grab that microphone and I'll be like, all right, everybody, like, let's play this game. And then like give them the microphone and make them try to like get them out of their seats and get them involved and just try to make it fun and an enjoyable experience. And I forgot what your question was, but did I answer it?
You nailed it. No, you nailed it, because game-based learning is something that they are not exposed to. And I played Family Feud yesterday. And I'm like, all right, the top 100 people were surveyed and the 5 answers. And they're like, what? You're Steve Harvey. And they got so excited. And afterward, we're high-fiving. And they're like, that was the best lesson. I played Family Feud. I mean, it was great.
It's so nice. You know, we're going to have a teacher's workshop next month about game-based learning. And even there are 2 Jordanian colleagues that I have here from last year who we're writing a research paper about game-based learning in Jordan. And I had over like 100 students. So I've had like 100 students fill in the survey of my current students at the university. And I would say 70 to 80% have never played games in the classroom. So it's just like, it's a great way to engage and to motivate and to learn. So
unstructured conversation versus the IELTS for us is that structured conversation that they use, but cannot use outside the classroom. And I did write a paper myself for Central Asia, because the authorities, we have cameras in our classroom. And so I've twice been called out, and they question it. They're allowed to, and that's part of working here. And I said, it's called game-based learning theory, and it's a methodology, and I'd be happy to teach it to you. They're like, what's that? Because it's teacher-centered here. And I go, well, I'd be happy again to teach it to you. Don't necessarily teach like that. Well, and I said, you know what? You asked me here to teach based on a Western methodology. And I'm telling you that this is a evidence-based methodology to learn English and to learn critical thinking. And there's many different applications. It actually has been used for hundreds of years to teach armies.
So you've had to stand your ground a little bit.
You have to be ready to push back. You have to know your stuff as a teacher sometimes in the regions you're at, and be ready to answer and to teach. And educational authorities at times can push back, and you got to be ready to stand your ground. And that's a hard boundary for me is, all right, well, I'm going to be knowledgeable as well and be prepared to bring in student-centered, learner-centered methodology. So you bring up a great point. So I appreciate that. And now we're going to go Jordanian survival guide. You ready?
Okay.
What's one thing you must never do in Jordan?
Insult someone's religion.
There it is.
It's just like Islam is interwoven so much in people's lives here that it's how you greet each other. Salam alaikum, peace be with you. It's how you say, maybe we say it as well in English, and we've said it so much that it kind of loses the meaning. But here, when someone even says a complaint, they will say, alhamdulillah. It means thank God. maybe I'm going through this difficult situation, but I thank God for it, because it's like, so everything is just like with this foundation of believing in God and hearing the call to prayer 5 times a day. It's like, the constant reminder of how you can't separate the two. And there are people here who are Christian or who have different religions, but it's a big part of life, and it's not something to be scared about, which is what I didn't realize before I came here.
You do not have to fear it. The people are loving, they care about each other, they support, and they're going to support you. I always am amazed. Every country I walk into, they are waiting to meet you, share their culture with you, listen to you, learn from you, and you're going to learn as much as them, but it is a shared experience. And again, that fear factor's there because there is some things we've been ingrained in us, but it'll be okay. You'll be fine.
And don't try to shake a woman's hands.
Oh my gosh. That same here in Buhara. Yes, I've made that mistake many times. Thank you for saying that. Men, yes, do not try.
Keep your hands to yourself.
Exactly. Oh man, I'm telling you, in Kazakhstan, it's normal to shake women's hands. As soon as you get out of my region, no, do not try. I got it. You better know where you're at. Exactly. If I visited Jordan tomorrow, what's the first word I need to learn?
If you visit Jordan tomorrow, like Yella or Habibi.
Habibi. What's that mean?
Oh gosh, there are like so many videos on YouTube or Instagram about this. It's just like, it's the word it's for a person, but for anything. If you are at the restaurant and you call the waiter over, it's like Habibi, or it can be your friend, or it can be your lover. It means like my baby. It's my dear. It's a term of endearment. Yeah. And for girls, it's like Habibti. And so it's really nice that people use it so much because it's a form of kindness.
There it is. I'm ready. Here I come, Jordan. Assalamu alaikum. That's what you have to say here. And now I got Habibi. All right. I'm ready.
You're ready.
All right.
Come on over.
Definitely. I can't wait. Teacher versus tourist. Here we go. What's one thing your students think is weird about you?
Nothing. Come on. Nothing and everything, I would say. I don't know if it's like, so Americans have the reputation for being loud, right? And I think that I follow that stereotype. I reinforce that stereotype. I'm just like a loud person, but even in my family, they tell me like I'm the loudest one of like the Italian side. So I don't know. I like laughing. I like joy. I like, showing curiosity about other people. I think that it can come across as like, a lot of people will say that I'm like asking too many questions, or they'll say like, well, why do you want to know about that? Or it will sound like interrogative, I guess. But really, I'm just trying to like make an understanding of the world, or like why I'm interested in like why people do things. Maybe I should be less interested, but that's just like not how I'm wired. And so, I guess being very curious about other people, asking a lot of questions, and being loud.
I don't know what it is about international educators, but I think we have this similar underlying part of us, because my dean always shuts my door to my classroom. She looks at me and smiles, and you're being too loud. And maybe that's the only thing she could say to me in English. I go, okay, just close.
You should be loud.
But the students love it. And that's part of the American culture that we can share with them, of expression. We don't have many boundaries in expression, whereas in most of the countries I go to, there are boundaries to expression. Yeah. Even smiling here in Kazakhstan, smiling is not part of the culture until you get to know someone. And then they're the most loving, warm, hospitable, amazing people. But when you initially come into Nukus, nobody's going to smile at you. It's just not part.
They would think that I would be weird because I'm just like always smiling like.
Yes, exactly. Yep, there it is.
It's a sunny day. I saw a bird.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just smiling at people. They're like, why are you smiling at me? I actually had a taxi driver ask me that. I started laughing because he almost got in an accident, and I started laughing. And he turns around. Why are you smiling, laughing? I go, oh, because I don't know, because I was so scary. I started laughing. I was so scared that you made me laugh. All right. Would you rather? Are you ready for would you rather?
Ready.
All right. Would you rather teach a class at 6 a.m. or at 10 p.m.? Are you a
6
morning or
a.m.
night? Okay.
I'm a morning person. I got up at 6 this morning. I walked my dog. I made some breakfast. I finished cleaning outside my patio, and I will feel tired, as the day goes on, but I don't know, it's just something about like that smell in the morning or the first feeling of the sun where it's not so hot but still feels warm.
Love it. Now, are you a tea person? Do you like tea?
I am.
Okay. Would you rather eat falafel for a month or never have tea again?
You can't make me choose about that.
Why? It's a would you rather.
The falafel for a month because falafel is like a pretty heavy thing because it's fried. It's very delicious, like golden and crunchy. But I drink tea like morning, noon, and night.
This is the biggest challenge for you. This is your Meagan's mic drop. Before we start to wrap this up, can you sum up your experience in Jordan using only 3 words?
Sum up my experience in Jordan with 3 words. Sun, fun, and I don't know. It's hard to say, but because it's not fair to only just say it in 3 words. I'm looking outside right now in my garden, and there is an orange tree. The relationship that people have with their land, especially, I mean, obviously, like Palestinians, I would say maybe not to be political or anything, but you learn a lot about the history of this area being in it. I just support the people who want to stay on this beautiful land. And I don't know how I can say that in like 3 words or less. Connection to land. There, I'll say it.
Connection to land. Wow. This experience appears to have changed your perspective dramatically on teaching. Has it changed your perspective on international education being in Jordan, or how would you put that into words for everybody listening, or maybe for yourself?
My first, I studied international studies. I didn't study education. I didn't learn how to survive in the classroom before I was dropped in the deep end in Honduras. So a lot of my career journey has been going to different places and gaining international experience like via teaching. And I have had like a blast along the way, which is why I've continued doing it for like 15 years now. But having said that, I would like to become a little bit more specialized. And unfortunately, in international education, there isn't a lot of career progression, especially for teachers. So I was thinking that, coming to Jordan and being affiliated with the State Department, it would put me in a good position for applying for like federal jobs. But I've taken the Foreign Service Officer test 5 times, and I haven't gotten to the interview. And I know people say, like, don't give up, but I've also applied to be a relo. I've applied to be in reps that works for American Spaces, like all within the embassy, working in the public diplomacy sector, and have hit roadblocks every single time. So especially what's going on with U.S. aid and thinking about the future of wanting to stay in international development, and with things like, helping refugees that I do feel so strongly about, is to work hard for the most vulnerable people, kind of like devoting my life to that. And so I've tried to think about it in a different way where I could become more specialized and still help people. And I think that my next step will be to work in migrant integration programs in Europe not in the US right now, because a lot of the positions that do that, they're unpaid or they're internships. So it's just like it's not feasible financially to go back to the US and do what I want. Whereas I can go to Europe and I can work in this field and I can get a master's or a PhD in global migration for free because I'm an Italian citizen. Like it just worked out for me in that way. And I think that that's the direction where I see myself going, because I want to continue to be in the same field and use my knowledge and experience, but I guess like in a different way that will still help communities like combat racism and prejudice.
This is the most real talk I've heard about the situation, and being an international educator that you bring up is being adaptable, because the opportunities that are out there are not always going to fit into what we want them to be. We have to be able to adjust and move into different spheres of either education or support. We have to level up. We're constantly looking at it from different perspectives. And I remember somebody brought up, we live in a VUCA world. It's volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. For me as an international educator, and it sounds like for you too, that this is applicable to our journey into where we want to connect with communities abroad as not only an American, but to empower those people that maybe don't have a voice, or maybe need an advocate, or maybe just simply want to have a better life, or maybe just simply interact with us in a way that works for them. There's so many different ways to do this, but it is a challenge.
Yeah,
it is. It can be challenging financially. It can be challenging emotionally sometimes. It can be unpredictable. With this in mind, what advice would you give someone who's considering applying to be an English language fellow?
So I was actually having this conversation with someone the other day. They reached out to me and they said, you know, I'm interested in what you're doing. Can you tell me more about that? And it's interesting to be in that moment and be able to reflect fully on your experience and the things that stand out. And even in this conversation with you is like, you know, you could be having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, or, you know, you could have trouble with funding, or maybe your program is put on pause and you're feeling isolated and lonely. But the thing that comes to my mind is do it, because, you know, and any kind of international experience or anything that scares you or anything that challenges you, because I think that that's what we're supposed to do as humans, is like to keep growing and to keep learning and to keep supporting each other. And if you have any inkling of interest in doing it, like any twinge of goosebumps or excitement in your body when you hear about this program, then do it. Because as someone who has taught internationally before without a support system, it can be even more challenging and not enjoyable. But coming to Jordan, like I tell everybody this, like in the first 2 weeks, I felt like I had more of a community than I did when I lived in Italy for 2 years. Like moving there by myself, working online, it was a big challenge. And so I never really felt like I was accepted into the community, unfortunately. But coming to Jordan is, or maybe it was because I've had, you know, other fellows in this area and doing things and people going through the same experience. It's just like, it really lightens the load and it really makes your experience more enjoyable to have that WhatsApp group where you can send that message like, this really pissed me off today, or look how amazing this place is where I'm staying for $25 a night, you know?
You must have been front row, first seat in my brain, because I literally got goosebumps. When you were saying do it, there was a moment about 7 years ago when I was scared. I was communicating to my family that I had this passion and this idea to travel internationally, and I don't know what that looks like, and it's scary, but there was so much emotion behind it. I was trying to explain it and put it into words. Like, I don't know if there's words to explain how much I want to do it. And is there any way you could support me? And they're like, yeah, let's try it. I go, okay. And then from there, it's grown into this, into like a lotus flower. It's opened up into so many different layers of expressions of who I truly am as a person. I meet people like you, but also the communities I'm in. I feel at home, and I feel at home in myself, and I feel at home in the communities. Even though these challenges are so complicated sometimes, we have the skills to meet them because we have others. Like you said, those groups that we have, we can do it. And when you said do it, I'm like, yeah, do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah. I had that same feeling when I joined the fellows community. And the first, I got so excited because I was like, oh, these people are just like me. I'm not the weirdo.
That's it. We could speak another 2 hours. That was what my experience was in Washington, D.C. When I was in the community of the 150 other teachers, I called my wife and my kids, and I said, I'm going to get emotional. I found a place where I fit in. No, seriously, I found a place where I fit in.
That's beautiful.
They get me, and I get them. It's a feeling that you can have. And so thank you for sharing that, because this is what it's all about.
Yes, do it. I'm glad that your family was supportive for you, and that they continue to be supportive for you and allow you to grow into the person who can best, support them back.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this time with you too. So I want to say thank you for spending some time with me, and I've learned so much from you, and I'm really grateful for you, and I'm inspired by you, and I'm excited to move forward in this journey as a community, and to have the opportunity to maybe one day teach in a community together, or just simply have a friendship. So thank you.
Yeah, great. And let me know when you want me back on the podcast. I can tell you about how to get your Italian citizenship through your ancestors.
Sounds good. Thanks, Megan. Yeah. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. Right. You too. Bye.
Okay. Bye. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Language Bridge podcast. A huge thank you to Meagan for taking us on a journey through her experiences as an English language fellow in Amman, Jordan. From her classroom adventures to cultural surprises, it's clear that language teaching is all about so much more than just words. It's about our connection, it's about adapting to unique situations and embracing new perspectives. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe or follow and leave a review. It really helps us bring more incredible stories to educators around the world. And don't forget to follow Language Bridge Podcast on Chiaramonte09 Instagram. You can find Meagan on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website at www.gchiaramonte.com for more insights, resources, and upcoming episodes. Until next time, keep building those bridges through language, and most importantly, keep inspiring your students. You're doing a phenomenal job. Talk soon.